Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again this edition of the Duval Dive. Glad to have you in here. Of course, if you're here, chances are you probably are one of the members of the Duval Dive. And if you're not, we're still glad to have you. Nonetheless, of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game of Jaguar Report. The NFL schedule dropped this past week. So you already know we got to have a deeper conversation about that. I can promise you it won't be 2 hours long like they did on ESPN, but I can guarantee you it'll be a lot more fun. Part of the reason for that is because I'll be doing it here with my man, my personal champion, Travis Holmes, Big Cat Country. What's going on, my man?
I mean, I'm doing well. I'm happy to be your personal champion. Happy to be the champion in multiple households. Apparently, I'm doing big things these days.
Yeah, all over the place. I mean, you're out there at in the general area near Everbank, there over at the training camp facility, watching Murphy rookie camp. You're doing things with Hacker After Dark on 1010XL and Jags. Like, oh, sorry, bing. So you're all over the place, man. But since I brought up rookie mini camp, I know that you had put up a number of things on the Travis C. Holmes social medias and had some stuff on bigcatcountry.com. Bing. But tell the people here what are kind of the main things you observed that they may want to hear from rookie minicamp this past weekend.
I mean, we obviously know everyone's such a fan of Wayne Ruby, the Division III wide receiver out of Mountain Union, and he ended up getting injured on the first day of rookie minicamp, unfortunately. So now we've all seen the fact that he's cleared the waivers and he is on the Jaguars IR, unfortunately. But that's a great situation for him. He'll have a year to develop. Everyone's been talking about Jarvis Landry, obviously. The veteran 5-time Pro Bowler from LSU, who's out and doing a lot of his drills immediately in front of or immediately behind Brian Thomas, Brian BTJ. Sorry,
Gotta stay hip
yeah, BT. The players call him BT. I'm gonna start calling him BT. I know we in the draft groups all call him BTJ, but I'm gonna start going with BT. All the drills that they ran were right behind each other, and when you talk to BT, he's talking about the fact that Landry's an OG. Landry's one of those guys that everyone at LSU was just following and is aware of, and he's doing all of his drills right behind him. And because of that, that might give him a good chance of just being on that 90-man roster for training camp, just because that gives BT someone to see how it's done, someone to kind of set him up for success early. Whether or not Landry makes the roster, that's to be seen, but that gives him a fighting chance just by itself. And the dude's freaking fast. He's so dang fast. I think everyone in the media already you saw this 4.3 speed. Cool. It's a difference to see the 4.3 speed on the field and have trouble keeping up with it. That's a whole nother conversation. So it's going to be fun, man.
Yeah. I mean, and that's we had explored elements of that last week on the Duval Dive. Bing, when we had talked about the mega concept and how him stretching the field would be important. But talk me, how did Jarvis Landry look? Because like I know that the Dolphin fan world were like, we don't need to have him back, or Jags fans that saw Miami fans would laugh at them for thinking it was a good idea. And now he's here at camp. I mean,
Yeah.
what'd you think?
Up and down. He didn't have the day you want to have as far as if you're in a tryout situation, because everything is a competition. How well you or how well you're infusing the playbook into your knowledge bank, and you're bringing it out to the field. How well you're running your routes. I mean, everything is under scrutiny, and he's obviously going to be judged at a different level than these rookies on their first day of rookie minicamp.
Right.
So because of that, he slipped twice in his routes. He had to redo the drills twice because of those slips. Like, he actually hit the ground on 2 of them.
Was that him or was that conditions? I'm just checking.
But they were inside because it was raining so bad outside. They actually went inside. So
Well, yeah, but I'm not saying no. So the reason why I say conditions, it's not necessarily limited to what's going on with the weather. Like, was it slippery on the turf? Because, covering it for the black and gold banneret. Bing, I've been at UCF Pro Days back when they still had them on campus, and there would be players that would complain about the turf being slippery. I'm just asking.
that's fair, especially if you're not someone who's used to playing on turf or practicing on turf. If you've always done this on grass, there are some differences with the pellets and things of that nature. I'm not going to say that that's not the case. However, if everyone else is kind of going through these drills, again, whether they're undrafted free agents, whether they're rookie tryouts, whatever it may be, then that's the expectation of you as a veteran. of course. So I can't give him that pass if I'm not giving anyone else
Oh,
that pass, unfortunately.
right. I'm not saying to give him a break on the evaluation. I'm just curious if it was a factor. I'm not there. You were. You were the one handling business for the Big Cat Country. Bing. I'm just,
Well, everyone talked about it, and it was just a great. Like when I say everyone, I'm talking. The 30 people in the media were all in agreement. This was just a conversation that no one's saying out loud because unfortunately, you want to root for him. He's the kind of guy you really just freaking want to root for.
Sure.
And because of that, it's like, all right, cool. Hopefully he'll have a better day on Saturday that's closed to the public, so we just we're not able to see that. It could have just been those jitters and then just getting reacclimated. He was a little bit rusty, etc. But he finished off strong. Two over the shoulder deep passes at the back of the end zone twice in a row. Toe
Nice.
tap at the back of the end zone that kind of Zay Jones catched, or the Calvin Ridley catch that would be a incomplete pass, however you
Oh,
want to look at it. um, so again, if he practiced Saturday like he finished off on Friday, then yeah, he has a good chance. But because he doesn't do special teams, that's going to be a curious roster conversation at the end of training camp.
and listen, credit to the front office for bringing him in. And I know like the conversation's been had, and I think it was said pretty well, if not best, by our friend of the show, T. Wiggs
Mhm.
of Locked On Jaguars. Like the chances of him getting on the roster are low. This is a crowded space, but if the front office said to him, "Listen, you come in, you show BT ropes. In exchange, you'll be able to be out in camp and get a shot to make it here or with one of the other 31." I think that's a fair scenario, and I think that's what we call a win-win in
Correct.
negotiating business. So,
Correct. At the end of the day, that's going to give him an opportunity to get some plays, to get some snaps on tape, and at bare minimum, that is his audition elsewhere. So, hey, it's a win-win, like you said.
but anyways, enough about that. Let's get into the meat potatoes of what the people out there actually want, and that's going over this schedule. Now,
Hmm.
Travis, I have to say, for me, I I get why it's important. I am not one of these people that outright think that schedule release shows should not exist. People plan travel based on it. And, what else football do you have right now? Exactly. So I get it from that standpoint. I find it interesting that let's just get into it. This is let's just do it this way. We'll just kind of go game by game. I'm not necessarily here trying to do a record prediction yet, although
Okay.
a lot of the powers that be, including the man here to my right on the or to your right on the studio, um, has done so. He has given the team one less from last year's prediction, as according to his final prediction made on the Student of the Game podcast that Travis is now trying to hide from on Twitter. Bing.
Oh Lord. So we're doing this. Okay.
No, I make that
I got
joke, but you did also too on the same show in the interest say a worst case scenario was 9 wins too as a possibility as well.
you. Yeah.
Um, and there were a lot of games you weren't sure the outcome of. With this week or with this year's schedule, I feel like there are a lot of games that people think they know the outcome of, and I just don't share that optimism. I think you're in that camp as well.
Correct.
And the reason why I make that speech to open up is, listen, today, Travis, I got to tell you, I'm not sure I picked the Jags to win in Miami to open the year. But that's going to be a fun game to watch.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone, well, I say anyone, that's not true at all. I don't think many folks are confident that they're going to win. I think that they have faith that they could win. And I think that's just the difference. Miami is absolutely beatable. That they are. Mike McDaniel is also 2-0 in his opening weeks, and as far as being the head coach for the Miami Dolphins. That's not great, but the Jaguars also play their best on the road. Benefit Jaguars, benefit Dolphins, strength on strength. Who knows? But again, new defense that's facing an offense that tries to stress communication. They're really good at motion. They're really good at bunch sets. They're the team in the NFL that's kind of been doing that for the past year or 2 years. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They've been very, very good at manipulating defenses' eyes and manipulating their coverage rules to try to cause these coverage busts. I mean, that's how they put up near 70 points against the Denver Broncos, just mainly coverage busts and things of that nature. So, new defensive coordinator, new defense. potentially a few rookies starting in that secondary. There are some questions that's going to be answered, and they're going to be answered really quickly.
Against Mike McDaniel, you got to put no S because that's for
Mike
the guy.
McDaniel. My apology. Yes.
Because if you say McDaniels, remember when it comes to Josh McDaniels, the S is for sucks. We've been over this, okay?
Oh gosh.
Anyways, and listen, as new look defenses go, I know Miami has the same thing, but if it comes down to a shootout, it's not that I like Tua better than Trevor. It's quite the opposite. But who on earth is going to hold Tyreek and Waddle? They just got better weapons, man. So but it'll be. I think it'll be a fun game to watch. I just don't see the Jags winning it today. But hey, there's still training camps that have to happen.
They got better weapons and have a better OC. That's where my head really is at. It's going to be the Jaguars DC versus the Dolphins OC. That's how I view that game. If you can find a way to slow them down by playing some solid man-to-man defense with no bust, you can beat them. And I don't think you beat them by a little. I think you can beat them by a lot. So it can be a blowout either way in that way. If you play disciplined defense with great communication and you just don't have those coverage busts, that's the type of team that Miami Dolphins actually struggles with. So I'm not going to just say it's not impossible. I'm just going to say it's going to take that disciplined nature that you hope for from a Ryan Nielsen defense. So there's a chance there.
Yeah, no, I think that's tight. I'll agree with all of that. But the next two over here we have one will be at what is currently known as Everbank. Yes, the contract's expired. They're going to get a new sponsor. We don't have it yet. I know Travis, with good reason, is cheering for Publix. I too would love a chicken tender Publix sub in the cafeteria. That'd be great. But the Browns come to Everbank, followed by the Jags heading over to the former Ralph Wilson Stadium and facing the Buffalo Bills. This is a pair of teams. I lump them together as a pair of teams that I believe, are going to take a step back compared to last year.
What's possible? I mean, it is possible because again, you just don't know you really just don't know what you're going to get from Deshaun Watson. Like they hit Joe Flacco when he was becoming basically just starting out his streak of great games, coming off the bench, coming off the practice squad, and not much tape to kind of figure out what you're going to do against that. Not to mention they also were at the end of the season with their own injuries, the Jaguars secondary, and having a lot of coverage bust. I mean, it basically ended up being the David Njoku game, where he just ended up getting 2 long touchdowns from coverage busts, one from Aluakon, one from Williams. One of those guys is not even here at this point. So at the end of the day, you now have a situation where you have a quarterback that you don't know what you're going to get from in Watson against a defense that you just don't know what you're going to get from. I believe and hope that the Jaguars will win, but I also have no idea. At the end of the day, it is a home opener for the Jaguars, who have struggled at home.
No, that's accurate. I don't think. I know they struggled at home last year. I'm not here to say I'm still not quite there because last year's schedule at home was so very difficult. The way that it was, right? You faced the 2 AFC Championship participants. You faced the Super Bowl participants all at home, and then somebody wants to try to tell me last year's schedule was weaker. But we'll get into that later. But for specific to the home schedule, like, I mean, half the schedule is at home. Well, more than half actually, right? Because you got a game in England, in London, there that doesn't count as an actual home game, right? So what? 3 of your remaining 7 home games is Super Bowl participants and the AFC conference runner-up.
Yeah, but you also have zero idea who's going to be those guys this year. So we're giving that we're obviously giving the benefit to not having hindsight.
So the reason why that's a bad take, Travis, is we knew all of those teams are going to be good teams going into this year as well.
But we don't know. But we believe some of these teams are going to be good teams this year. We just don't know which ones are going to be in the championship versus not. That's the biggest difference.
Nobody here on the Jags schedule looks like any sort of a championship contender.
At home? Or are you just saying in general?
I'll start with at home, but I think in general that's the case. Yeah. Are they playing the Niners this year? I don't think so. So
you thought the Niners were going to be in the Super Bowl?
No, I didn't.
Last year?
I actually only had them at 10 wins, but the punchline is they were still going to be a tough out, period.
Yeah, but now we're moving the goalpost.
No, we're not. We're not. You're you're trying to dodge and doing so inefficiently. And because I'm rejecting you, you have head trauma making you think the goalpost.
No, we just talked about Super Bowl contenders. Super Bowl contenders. That was literally the conversation. And now it's like, well, no, it's 10-win team, but competitive.
Nobody gets to a Super Bowl without being good is the point, right? Unless you're the Chicago Bears quarterbacked by Rex Grossman, but that's years ago. Right?
Okay.
The point is, you can't argue that they aren't a good. You're going to argue that the Niners, that the Chiefs and Ravens aren't historically great franchises right now, or perennially, I should say, at this point.
Oh no, they're absolutely perennially.
And what are we arguing about?
Because those are 3 games on the schedule.
Yeah, those are 3 games on the home schedule, which is why I think the home schedule last year was difficult, which is why the reason for some of the struggles. I don't think last year's home struggles necessarily translate to this year's home struggles. That's what I'm trying to tell you, right?
Okay, we shall see.
I mean, let's walk through the home schedule real quick, just going off the top, right? The Browns, the Colts, the Pack, the Vikings, the Texans, the Jets, and the Titans. The Texans might be the strongest team the Jags face at Everbank all year, right?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially.
You know, and by the way, I had the Texans looking good last year, and, you know, granted, I didn't see them winning as many as they won.
Right. I still had them less than 500, to be clear, but like I had them 1 game less than 500 and thinking that they were going to be good, and I thought that was a benefit. I thought that was an improvement for them, not knowing that they were going to.
And it still was an improvement, but we were still seen as optimists at the time. Yeah, I don't want to take that away from you either. Absolutely. Anyway, for me, yeah. So for me, I think those next 2 games are going to be. I think those aren't going to meet the hype, which is unfortunate because I believe the Bills game is a Thursday game. Sunday game.
It's a Monday game. Bills is Monday. Monday Night Football at Buffalo.
Thank you for that. It is Monday night, right? So yeah. Then that'll take us up to the first 2 division games. Texans heading to Houston. That's going to be a loss. I'm sorry. And then hosting the Colts
at home. The Colts can't win in Duval. It just don't.
Moreover, can Anthony Richardson make it out of the first 4 weeks alive to get to Everbank
without a concussion?
That's the biggest question for the Colts, don't you?
That is a fair question. I mean, he has to show that. Obviously, he had a really rough rookie season, so hopefully he can just stay intact for the 2024 season, and kind of can take it from there and figure out what his development is going to look like after that. But just finish the season first. Let's go. Let's start there.
See, yeah, that's what makes it really interesting to analyze the Jags this year, even though it's entirely too early to do it. I know there are people that say that the Jags are going to battle for 4th. No disrespect to our good friend Mike Patton, the general. But there are also people that are trying to tell me that they're going to go win 12 games and win the AFC South.
And also, that to me feels like just being drunk on hopium all day. Like I have. Yeah, that's grade A uncut pure hopium. Like I have nothing there. Like is it impossible? No, by no means is it impossible. But to have that expectation almost says you're claiming that they have to go 5-1 in conference. That's something they've never done in the history of the AFC South.
I feel like this year, if the Jags go 3-3, that's a success.
But if they go 3-3, then they obviously can't win 12 games. That's my point. Because if they go 3-3 in conference, there's no way they're going with that out of conference schedule. They're not going 7. Lord, I have to forget the math. But there's
wait. This out of conference schedule intimidates you?
To tell me that you're going to go 3-3 in the AFC South? I don't think the AFC South is that much more difficult than these out of conference games. That's my point.
That I'll agree with.
If you can't beat these teams, if you can't be better than 3-3 against these teams, then how are you going to show me that you are winning 80% of your remaining games? That's the piece that I'm kind of focused on.
You make up for it by beating the Texans. There's going to be a Friday game, which I think is interesting.
Well, that's part of the 3-3.
Sorry, the Raiders.
The Raiders. Okay, there we go.
I said it wrong. The Raiders, which is, I think it looks like it's
a Sunday. That's 22nd.
There's a game that's off the beaten path schedule wise. We'll get to it later. But anyways, yeah, beating the Raiders is a good way to make that up. And then I think there's some teams on here that we don't know how well they're going to do, and we'll get to that as we go. For example, let's take the trip to London here, where you have the Bears and the Patriots. Listen, I think that's another 2-0 stint in London written all over it. You just got to hope that this defense doesn't get overconfident against Caleb Williams, right?
Well, that's the conversation because that Chicago Bears team, and shout out to Gus Lowe on Big Cat Country. He had his game by game prediction, and he actually predicted that the Chicago Bears game was going to be a loss because of the fact that that roster is stacked, even though it's a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
And to that point, and that's what I said to him then. I'm like, hey, if the Jaguars lose against Chicago, I don't know how you can and I know the NFL is matchup by matchup, but I don't know how you can forecast some of the other wins that you forecast with having that game also be a loss, if that makes any sense. So it's like, oh, if you don't go 2-0 in London, you set yourself up for a very rough year with the rest of that schedule because the end of the season, the last 6 games, 4 of those are AFC South games or AFC South matchups. That can make or break your season in and of itself. But if you don't go 2-0 early on that London slate, I mean, what you're probably, Lord, that's a rough situation. You're probably what, maybe 2-4.
I'll put
3-3 best case. That's rough.
The table is set for the month of October to be 4-0, and all they have to do is take care of the Packers. And I believe the Pack will take a step back. And then I made a bad Brian.
See, and I don't. That's where we disagree.
And if you can believe in Jordan Love, cool. If the Jags keep that game close, I think Eric Armstead, if still healthy, makes Jordan Love make a mistake.
We've talked about this from day one. Even when Aaron Rodgers was in Green Bay, I'm a Matt LaFleur fan. I'm a Matt LaFleur believer.
Okay.
Hey,
we shall see. But to your credit,
he was my OC. He was my OC in college. I've always believed in that man.
Jordan Love, darn sure. Jordan Love, darn sure made a hell of a case for LaFleur being more capable than his life under Aaron Rodgers did, because Rodgers would take the helm off often. It would be frustrating, I would imagine.
And Rodgers would not throw anything in the middle of in between the hashes, so it was all ISO routes, which takes away a third of your offense. Where have I heard that before? Also, someone not throwing it to the middle of the field at all for 2 years.
By the way, this is not me saying Matt LaFleur is bad. I just thought he was somewhat overrated, and he's having the opportunity to correct me, so I will grant that. That being said, it's Jordan Love that I question confidence in, not I want to see what they do now that they got a year of film on them. That's what I'm saying. The Eagles are curious to me simply because, to your point, they changed their OC. But that's going to be that's the night game. That's the Sunday night game I was talking about.
Sunday night game at Philadelphia, just like they had at Buffalo on Monday night. That's a rough environment for sure. But again, I don't know if it's as rough as a team to face as we believe Philadelphia. Philadelphia is still getting the rollover effect from the 2022 season and not looking as much at the 2023 season and losing their center, which is a freaking big loss for the team that runs the tush push. Like, all right, cool.
Quarterback sneak. Stop insulting Jason Kelsey on this show. It's not going to happen here. You might get away with that in the South Florida Tribune.
Quarterback sneak, tush push, rugby scrum, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm getting at. At the end of the day, the Philadelphia Eagles were winning on the margins because of the fact that was nearly a guaranteed play on 3rd and 4th downs. And if it's not as guaranteed, if that goes from being 95% conversion rate to 70% conversion rate, this team has had 3 more losses.
All I'm saying is Jason Daniel Kelsey deserves more in his craft than being referred to as a country line dance. That's all I'm saying, Travis.
Yeah, I ain't in that conversation. I don't know who you been arguing on the socials. Minnesota Vikings. That's gonna be interesting, bro.
The only team that's more fraudulent than the Minnesota Vikings are the Atlanta Falcons. And because I call them the fraud cons, that should tell you everything you need to know. I don't believe in the Vikings. I don't care how good their roster allegedly is. Your top player is a receiver. Historically, that does not get you where you need to go. I think the Jags can beat this team.
Oh, of course I think they can beat this team, but I also don't think that they're a team that's going to lay down. The Vikings are easily a team that can beat you, just like the Jaguars can beat them, if that makes sense. They are equally dangerous in that way. They are Bitcoin. I don't know if they're going to end to the moon or if they're going to crash and burn, but it's going to be entertaining to watch either way.
The Vikings as Bitcoin might be one of my most favorite analogies you've ever seen, because it also ropes in fraud, and that's perfect. They're up and down, and they could be so bad that they're fraudulent. I love it. Love it. The Detroit Lions, listen, I'm not going to dance with you. That's a tough out. I don't care if they take a step back or not. That's going to be a tough team to battle.
We're 0-2 versus them right now. I mean,
Yeah.
since they've improved and we've improved, we have not sniffed a good game against them. I'm not even going to say like they're just 0-2. We have gotten demolished by them in the times we played them so far. So we gotta figure that out.
Well, listen, good news is they're not on Thanksgiving. I didn't want to have to make it awkward breaking out my laptop and writing a piece for Jaguar Report during the meal. Bing! So then after that is I think what I think is a well-timed buy. If the Jags had a buy this time last year, I don't remember if they did or not, I'll be honest, but if they did, I think it would have served them well with all the injuries they had at this time. And they still got more after that anyway, so how much help would it have done? I don't know. Anyways, hosting the Texans. I'm going to say this here, and call me a hater if you want. I have a feeling the Texans, it's going to be hard for me to not draw the Texans as sweeping the Jags this year.
Oh, that's funny because I actually have that as a win for the Jaguars. Just because it's after the bye, they're going to be able to heal up, and just it's so hard to sweep a team in this AFC South. It so rarely happens that I'm like, I gotta believe that the Jaguars will be able to get one of those wins, and especially if it's going to be one, it's going to be the one at home. And then they also have a hard game against the Titans the week beforehand. The Texans do. So that I think that normally they play you pretty well on defense also and beat you up a little bit. That's going to give the Jaguars at least a chance.
Are the Titans that hard to go? I mean, listen, if the Jags,
the Titans are never a hard to go. They're never a hard team. They shouldn't be a hard team to beat, but they're hard. They beat you up. They're good for that. They're a team that's normally in your face, bump and run defense. They're going to make sure you can't run the ball. They're going to beat you up physically in that way.
Are they still that under this new coaching regime is the question.
That's the question. That's a great question too.
Yeah, and you're not wrong about the front, man. Listen, I propped Simmons every time. Just like I have DeForest Buckner for the Colts every time. So I get you there. The Jets, I'm not phased. I think, listen, Aaron Charles Rodgers is still an injury risk going to the season period. And his opening game is Monday night against the Niners in Santa Clara. If he survives just that week, I'm starting the hallelujah mass already, okay? I don't think he's playing in week 15, Travis.
And I do. I think by week 15 he'll be healed and be a little bit better or be more his normal self, especially if they've now passed their bye week and all of that. Also, we did skip the Titans game, but the Titans.
Them. That's why I did.
Yeah, we just mentioned them. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think the Jaguars do beat the Titans. If there's a chance for them to sweep a division foe, it's going to be the Titans, in my opinion. And I'm nervous about that Aaron Rodgers Week 15 game because of what the rest of that team does look like, and it's still Aaron. He's just so up and down. Who knows where it's going to land there?
And they are a good roster. It's just impossible for me to pick that game as the most difficult game the Jags have. A, they're hosting it. B, I don't feel like there's enough question marks. Yeah. It's like you say, you feel like Rodgers will be healthy, but you would also acknowledge it's shaky. Like I'm clarifying your stance for the public at large. Right?
Oh no, I can agree with you. Yeah, and it really does depend on health, but it's not significantly different than the Jacksonville Jaguars, who also will be dependent upon health across the roster if we're going to make a run.
Right. Yeah. Excellent take there. I don't think anybody's intimidated by what's going on
Las
with
Vegas.
Yeah, whatever. Good luck, Mr. Pierce.
I view them like I view the Texans defense, like the Titans defense. Another team that will smash them out. That's going to be smashed. That's who they are. That's their identity, and that will be a very difficult game to then follow back up again with Tennessee. So that's what you hope does not end up being a trap game simply because you've just been beat up, 2 weeks in a row. Again, if the Titans defense is what it's been under Vrabel, and that's still a question mark.
Well, right. I mean, if the Jags D front is what it is, no matter what Max Crosby does, I think at the very least the Jags win that football game traveling across the country. And of course, they wrap the schedule in Indy against the Colts. And if Anthony Richardson's playing or not will be a great question. You might end up seeing Joe Flacco. Who knows?
I would lose my mind if they have to go up against Joe Flacco again with an opportunity to clinch and just no. The Jaguars need to be in a position to not for that game not to matter because that would just be insane. I would pull the few pieces of gray hair I have in here out, man.
Well, for all the smoke that Travis wants to avoid, the good news is for him, he said jokingly, is that we don't have time to debate which schedule is stronger or not. We could say that for
Oh
next week.
yes,
That's fine.
I'm looking forward to that one for next week.
Oh man, I've never seen so anxious to lose in my life. But hey, maybe we just have that much fun. Anyways, Travis, tell the world where you could be found, my guy.
You can find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. You can find my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars on BigCatCountry.com. Check out 1010XL's Hacker After Dark interview we had on Thursday night. It was a great time. Just about 15 minutes. I posted a few snippets of the interview on the socials this morning. And you can find me on, obviously here every Friday, wherever you catch your podcast, 11 a.m. And on the South Florida Tribune. I'm on multiple of their podcasts, Monday through Friday. As always, where can you be found, sir?
Real quick, Playmakers Blog Network jumps in with a big year for the Jags. I'll say this. It's going to be a big year for some of the coaching staff there. I'm going to say that.
I think it's less of a big year for the coaching staff and more of a big year for the GM. I think they're more of a hot. I think he's more of a hot seat than the coach is. I think there's a chance that even if this thing did go upside down, Doug would still be safe, and Trent would be more likely to be out between the two of them.
As much as I want to have that conversation, I also don't want to have this conversation because I don't want the Jags to do that bad, and we're low on time. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as a student of the game. Check out my writings with the Jaguar Report, the 3-point conversion, and the Black and Gold Banneret. You'll also find me on the Night Shift podcast with the Black and Gold Banneret crew, as well as the Student of the Game, which airs on Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. But an honor, joy, and privilege to do the thing with you guys once again. Special thanks, of course, to my personal champion, Travis Holmes. I am Kyle Nash. Till next time, class dismissed.